Okay, Vicky. Why is a salt solution not a compound?
Because salt solution components are physically common.
Sorry?
Because salt solution components are physically common.
Okay. So how can you separate a mixture of iron and sulfur? Steve,
We can. What is your question, sir?
how can you separate a mixture of iron and
We can separate them by using magnet, and the magnet will attracting the iron, not the sulfur.
okay? Why do different atoms have a different size?
It depends on the proton,
Proton. Pro. It depends on
proton and
proton and the opposite of proton. Okay, next. How do scientists ensure a theory is found valid?
Scientists enter theories valid by doing the experiment repeatedly and verify through observations until they get a proper result.
Okay. How can you identify a mixture?
You can identify the mixture by saying its properties or separating them by the four physical process.
Physical methods like?
Evaporation, chromatography, filtration, and distillation.
Okay. So, why is a salt solution a compound?
Because you can still separate the elements to make the salt by physical methods using evaporation.
Using evaporation. Okay. So, can you explain the process of separating the salt?
So by evaporation, we put the salt solution inside a bowl and put it under the sun or the heat, and so the water will evaporate and the salt will sink.
Okay. Follow. How can you separate a mixture of iron and sulfur?
We can separate iron and sulfur by using the magnet, as we know that the magnet attracts the iron and leaves the sulfur.
Okay, so Rizia, how do scientists ensure a theory is valid?
By using experiment multiple times until they sure that is true valid.
Okay,
The solution is valid.
Steve, why do different atoms have different size?
Because the atom depends on the proton and
Proton and
electron.
so, give the example.
Like
What will happen if you have the more subatomic particles in one atom? What will happen if one atom has more subatomic particle? Because you say it depends on the number of proton and electron. So if the number of proton and electron more than another atom, what will happen?
Okay, sir, I don't know.
Okay, how can you identify the mixture?
We can identify the mixture by by seeing properties, and we can spread them physically.
Okay, why do different atoms have a different size?
Because it depends on the number of proton, neutron, and electron.
So if one atom has more subatomic particles like proton and electron than the other atom, it means what is the conclusion you get from that? So how can you separate a mixture? Oh, you have an answer this one. How can you separate a mixture of iron and sulfur?
We can spread them by using a magnet. The magnet attracts the iron but not the sulfur.
Okay. How can you identify a mixture? Mixture. Yeah.
Oh. How can we do?
Identify the mixture.
We can see the properties and try to separate them physically.
Why is a salt solution not a compound?
Because they are physically combined
Or that?
by water.
Okay. So, next, Brazil. How can you separate a mixture of iron and sulfur?
By using magnet, because the magnet will attract to the iron, because iron is magnetic while sulfur is not.
Okay. Why do different atoms have a different size?
Different atoms have different size because the size depends on the proton and electron.
So, if the more of proton and electron the atom has, it means
The size will be bigger
the
because
size will be bigger than the other atom because it depends on how many proton and how many electron inside. So why is that the solution of the problem?
Salt is not a compound because we can still keep the original properties and we can separate it by using the physical methods such as evaporations.
How can you separate the mixture of iron and sulfur?
We can separate them by using magnet, so the iron will be attracted and the sulfur will stay behind.
So how do scientists ensure a theory is valid?
They ensure the theory is valid by doing experiments over and over until they found the proof that it's correct.
Can you mention what is the first step of experiment?
First step is making a hypothesis.
Okay, Kasilas. Why do different atoms have different size?
Because the atom depend on the number of proton, electron, and neutron.
Okay, so the more of the proton and electron of atom has, it means
The atom will be bigger.
atom will be bigger. Okay. How can you separate a mixture of iron and sulfur?
Well, we can do it by just taking a magnet and just put it and swirl it around, and then when we take it out of the mixture, the iron will be attracted to the magnet, and therefore the iron and sulfur will be separated.
How do the scientists ensure a theory is valid?
The scientists can ensure it by doing lots of experiments and to check that whether it's correct or not.
Okay. How can you identify a mixture?
We can explain by seeing if their properties are the same as their constituents and we can separate them physically.
Why is a salt solution not a compound?
The salt and water in the solution keep their original properties. And are chemically bonded.
So how can you separate iron and sulfur?
We can use magnets to attract the iron and separate it from the sulfur.
Okay. Why do different atoms have different sizes?
Because every atom has different protons, neutrons, and electrons, and the atom relies on it. So whether it's small or big, it depends on the protons, neutrons, and electrons.
So if one atom has more proton than the other atoms, what is the conclusion you can get from that?
That atom will be bigger than the other.
Okay. So how do scientists ensure a theory is valid?
By do the theory many times. So the scientist will share that the theory is valid.
The theory is valid. By do the experiment, not by do the theory. How can you identify a mixture?
I see the properties. Yeah. So the mixture can still be separated using physical process. For example, like filtration, distillation, evaporation, and chromatography.
Okay. Why is a salt solution not a compound?
Because the salt solution is still can be separated from the water, which is from the evaporation.
Okay. So why do different atoms have different sizes?
Because every atom has different number of
Number of what? Neutron. It's not neutron.
Protons,
Proton
electrons.
and electron. So, what is the conclusion you can get from that? The more you have the proton, it means,
It will be bigger.
yeah, the bigger size of the atom you have. How can you separate a mixture of iron and sulfur?
We can use a magnet to attract the iron, so it will separate it from the sulfur.
Okay, why do different atoms have different size?
Because it depends on the number of protons, neutrons, and electrons. So if there are more protons in the atom will be bigger.
How do scientists ensure a theory is valid?
They do an experiment repeatedly until they ensure the result is valid.
Okay. So how can you identify a mixture?
You can see that the properties are the same with the constituents, and you can separate them physically.
How do scientists ensure a theory is valid?
By doing an experiment over and over until they make sure that their theory is valid.
How can you separate a mixture of iron and sulfur?
By using magnet. So if we make the magnet near to the iron and sulfur, the iron will be attracted. So it will be separated
So why is a salt solution not a compound?
because it's not chemically combined. We still can separate them by physical process, by evaporation.